Hello and welcome to this episode 184 Frame and Reference. You're about to drop into a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest Andrea Gavazzi, DP of LIEN. Enjoy. It's so cool that you got it into the. I mean, I know I saw you got the Sundance, the other film, the feature in Sundance, but it's cool you doubled up with the Oscars.
Well, same day. I learned the day of the premiere of the other project that it's a short at
Oh, it's a short.
Sundance. I learned that this other one was nominated. It's wild.
Yeah.
You know, I mainly do commercial and music video. Or I did mainly that in the last 4 or 5 years. And I did like 4 short films in the last 4 years, basically 1 per year. And, 2 are doing great. So I feel like almost like I picked perfectly, you know?
Yeah. I was going to say, how's the hangover after figuring that out back to back?
It's interesting because you're like, it's an itch that you want to scratch to shoot. I mean, at least for me, narrative. And I wasn't shooting much because the beginning of where I come from, my career, is I didn't go to film school. So when
you're a photographer, right?
No, I did economics.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I moved to, I mean, my childhood dream was to direct, but I moved to Southeast Asia, and in Southeast Asia and Vietnam specifically, I started doing a lot of photo. And before that, I was in Brazil for a little bit. I'm half Brazilian. And in working on some sets there, I realized, okay, no, wait, what I want to do is cinematography, not directing. I didn't really know how to get into it or anything like that. So when I moved to New York, doing like the travel plan of my life, I shot so many short films. Like that was my beginning of my film school, was short films and music videos. But they never come out, especially like the ones you do in the beginning. Like maybe they come out 3 years later. You're like, I'm not that DP anymore, and not even that person anymore, you know? So I want to show this to anyone. Now, like I learned so much more, and so this work is unusable, and et cetera, et cetera. But it's cute to look back at it sometimes and be like, oh, wow.
Yeah, I was actually looking at your Instagram, and one of the ones was like, here's some that never saw the light of day. And I literally I wrote it down. I was like, what? Because I'm experiencing something similar where I'm working on a few documentaries and they're not going to come out for like a year. So, but I hadn't worked in a while because, you know, it's LA.
Yeah.
We're just getting hammered. But like, it's like the only way you get hired is by having stuff come out and people go, oh, they're working. That's good. We'll hire them. And that gap between when stuff starts to come out and when it doesn't can create another gap, you know, and it's
totally. To be honest, it's 100% the reason I switched to commercial work years ago is because I wanted to make it through the route of narrative. And first, let's be honest, narrative is a million times harder. Like when I shoot narrative projects, I realize the fraud that I am and how much I have to learn and know, you know. It's commercial, especially when it starts getting on a bigger scale with better directors, etc. You have all the toys. You have the budget, if you really think about it, of like a Marvel feature per day. If you're doing like a $2 million commercial in 3 days, that's insane. It's an insane budget per day. You know, so like you can do whatever you want, and eventually an editor is gonna stitch up some 45-second piece, and like unless you're really like that they were, I don't know, in another state of mind, some good is gonna come out of that, you know. While again, the narrative, the shorts, the first indie features, and all that work, it's tough. It's tough because it takes a long time for them to come out. People budget a lot for the production, not really for the post. You know, I have a feature doc that it's I'm grading this week. I was telling you, we wrapped it almost 2 years ago.
Oh, geez. Well, and especially documentary can just like, yeah, at some point you have to pick when it's over. Like, I don't think any documentary filmmaker has been like, and the end.
No, yeah, that is the. I mean, this one specifically follow like the director worked on it from the conception to like now. It's been 7 years. It's incredible. Um, and the people in it grew up from being 14 years old to like adults. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, here we are.
Yeah. I mean, so did you get because your commercial work is fantastic. I did want to dive into that. But did you get like your first sort of bigger commercial off the back of music videos? Because that
Yeah,
seems to be a pretty common.
yeah. I started doing like super like no budget scrappy music videos with like friends. Literally, me and my ex roommate will reach out to like bands and be like, if you have 3,000, 4,000, whatever you have, we're gonna make a music video. And it worked one time out of 25,000. And so the first projects we did like this, and the same with other friends. Um, and it's literally like, I mean, the first music video that I think got me other music videos was me pulling focus, 3 rolls of 16, so 400-foot rolls for the entire video.
What's that like?
Where,
30 minutes of footage.
yes.
Yeah.
And we're literally, the way we shot it, it was like, with this shot is gonna go in this point of the song, and cut.
Yep.
We got it, like moving on, like literally, and I'm like pulling from the barrel by myself, lighting everything by myself. I had like, I think these were not even times of stairs. These were
Mm.
quasars. So like the first tubes that were out. I think I had like 3 quasars
I
and
still
like
got 4 of them. I still like them.
Lico. Yeah, they're great. Lico, one Lico, and I think that's it, like a couple of stands, and then like bounces and etc. And I'm like moving everything by myself, like that guy that like the musician that claps and has like all the, how do you call those?
The first AC or second
No, no,
AC?
no, the musicians, street musicians that have like a trumpet and a guitar and like
Oh,
and
sure, sure,
have
sure.
everything attached to themselves, and they're like a one-man band.
Street band. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Street band guy.
yeah, I felt like that, like it's all sweaty running around. But this music video came out very cool, and I think it started getting me like some bigger ones, but they're still very, very small at the time. Um, and then, people that I had worked with, I was a gaffer before. As a gaffer, were reaching out for me to gaff still some projects. I was like, yeah, I don't do that anymore. I shoot here is my work. And eventually, like, someone called me to do a commercial that maybe it was for any other DP of that circle, like very scrappy small job. And for me, it was like, wow, like a big opportunity. Yeah, and then it's kind of like interesting where like you hear this for years of like, oh, just one job that then it's gonna open up. That it is kind of um, it was that one music video that got me like 20 other music videos that got me one commercial. Then you continue.
Do you think having that shot on film was important? Because certainly when you shoot film, people, even if the budget was small, it's perceived as being higher budget, but also film just looks really good. But do you think
Yeah,
that
it
that had an
helps.
element?
Yes, I think there's two things. Was in a circle of super young DPs, younger than me at the time, that were like, oh, shooting everything on 16 and 35, like putting their own money on doing it. Um, because as friends and as people, as we're talking about it, it was a conscious reaction to like that look of shallow that was filled wide open, like you can't see anything in the back.
The 5D thing.
That was trendy like 8 years ago, you know? And I hated the look. It was, to me, it was, I want to do the opposite of that. And what is the opposite of that? Is 16 millimeter, and like I'm gonna shoot it at 5.6, and now you can see the set, you know. And I like that look. And I'm gonna shoot it on a 9.5, you know, and like you know, it's an aesthetic. There was an aesthetic of that time, and I think like it wasn't my aesthetic only. It's like I told you, like it became a thing. Um, and it did help a lot. I think like I kind of like entered in the right channel, like right stream, you know, um, and understood just as a taste thing because I didn't like the other thing. Oh, I like this thing, and eventually that thing was what became trendy and what people wanted to do, and that's why it got me more jobs and why other people wanted to do it. And then obviously people are like, who can shoot film? So like then it becomes also almost a problem. It's like that's the film guy. And I didn't want to be that, you know. So it's a tricky balance.
Yeah, I can't remember who I was just talking to, but like the whole problem of like, I think any DP obviously has like a preference of the type of stuff they shoot, but you know, if you get like one horror film that hits, now you're the horror film guy, and it's like, oh, I actually like rom coms. I was hoping I could shoot rom. They're like, nah, you shoot horror now.
Yes, yes. Well, it's I years ago I met Larry Sher, the DP of Joker, and he was like, yeah, I happened to end up in doing comedy, you know, and then you like the hangover kind of changed his life, and like, well, now I'm not gonna stop and be like, no, but I want to do like dramatic indie films. It's like, wow, like this all my shit started, and you're in it, you know, and um, yeah, I feel like it is a thing also for me. Like now in this short film, um, I'm getting a lot of short films, and I'm like, oh, I want to spend the next year doing like 10 shorts, 15 shorts, you know. So like, but I do want to make narrative, so I don't know what's the move here, you know.
Yeah, I mean the yeah, you had such good luck with two of them hitting real hard. Maybe you could do try to find like four more that are nominee worthy, and then just be
Yeah.
then immediately turn around and be like commercials, commercials. You got to stay one step ahead of the hiring people.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I wish I knew the answer to that. I would be using it.
Yeah. Do you find that this is an interesting thought. Do you obviously word of mouth is what gets you most things, you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I worked with this guy. But you know, with social media being such a hot topic at the moment, do
Mhm.
you find that Instagram is helpful for um, jobs, or is it more just like people go to check to make sure you have like an eye? Because I don't even think people really look at reels. I mean, like you have to have a reel, but I don't know how many people look. I feel like most people look at Instagram now, or
Yeah.
not. I don't know.
When I moved to the US, I didn't even have Facebook. I had no social media in any way. You cannot find me in the internet. As a matter of fact, you don't have any photos of me on my social media. But I realized that it's like, oh, you wanna like, you like to play like this board game, but you're coming with the wrong like pieces at it. It's like, no, you cannot. You literally cannot do it without. So like this thing of like I'm cooler than it. I don't want to have social media. Well, then you're not like it's hard because you're not participating in the discourse. You know, like if the conversation is happening on this platform, then you have to be on the platform. You know, it's like unless you already had done it and you didn't need it, you know. But I feel like anyone starting when I started, it would have been impossible. And sort of now it's an interesting moment because I feel like yes, I get a lot of jobs from Instagram, not directly people being like, "Hey, I have this job." Like that maybe happens, but it's more rare. It's more like I think someone sees my work through Instagram, and then is like a week later I get an offer, like a month later I get an offer for a commercial that maybe it's similar tone of what I just shared. So I assume.
Mm.
It happened because of that. But I feel today it's kind of dying because of the whole influencer reels, like 15-second, like addiction thing, like of TikTok. They're trying to transform it in that platform because it's a more of a video oriented platform now and less photo. That when I started, it was that. Um, so I don't really know what is the next, like thing. And yeah, I don't know, but yes, social media is a massive influence in what we do, no doubt.
Yeah, I deleted my Facebook in like 2015 or something, 2014, 2015, because I was just, it got really weird. And now we've seen the tail end of, I'm not going to say I was like Nostradamus about it, but right around that time, I was like, this is feeling a lot less like friendship and a lot more like anger. So I got rid
Yeah,
of it. And
yeah,
sure enough, now everyone always goes like, oh, there's all these groups. And, if you need to buy something, Facebook Marketplace. And I'm like, you know what? My life is already hectic enough. And I don't need, I don't need to go back. You know, I'll deal with the consequences of my own actions.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. Sorry. Um, do you still? It looks like you still shoot a lot of film, or is that just kind of like you have a nice colorist who's really helping you out?
It's a little bit of both. I do shoot, I would say maybe 30% of my projects are on film.
Hmm.
Um, but also it's a mix of an incredible luck and maybe things are connected in life somehow, and it's not just random chaos that we move through. And then I don't have the answer to that. Uh, but in 2019, I had a very, very little music video, maybe 2018 actually, with no budget and for color. And this friend is like, oh, there is this guy in LA, he's starting out, it's super nice. You wanna grade with him? Where I'm like, I mean, we have $300. So like, yeah, like he looks nice and let's see. And well, I graded everything after that project. This person that became also, his name is Dante, became also one of my best friends and neighbor in Los Angeles, and happened to become also one of the best colorists in the world now. And he's grading like insane projects, from like Beyonce to like features to like massive Super Bowl commercials, like it's doing it all. Um, and it's incredible to see like, the growth from like, I think his first music video ever was that video that we did together, you know? So it was lucky. And it was something that I realized is I was grading with a lot of different people. I still do because obviously it's not available sometimes.
Mm.
But I feel like coloring what we do is becoming such a massive part of, like, to be honest, is almost 50% at this point, like maybe 60-40. It changed the way I shoot also, because like a lot of times where like I'm running out of time and people are pressuring and it's like, where you go, like, and there is like, maybe you see like this area here that is like, it's maybe a stop and a half difference, balloons between this and this.
Yeah.
And I can just power window this, if I bring a flag, it's gonna be 15 minutes. It's a static shot, like I can just power window that, and it changed the way I think about um, a lot of my approach into shooting. It's been influenced by working with him and working with the colors that because it's time mainly. Like when you grade with the big companies, they have, and I mean he's in a great company too, but when you grade with like a company, three colorists or etc., they're fantastic artists, but they're kind of more in a corporate work where like you have 5 hours.
Mm.
It's not gonna be power windowing eyes and mouths and like general look. You have time, and then when you're done, you're done. There is no like tomorrow. You wake up, you rewatch it, and you're like, oh damn. I think we went too extreme on the reds in this scene. No, this is maybe a little touch, but this is the lack and the strength that I found in having this collaboration that is like this and we're making this together, you know? I'm not alone shooting this and like and I know like oh I messed up a little bit on this thing. I know he can like fix it. Um it's I don't know. It makes me relaxed to be
Yeah.
honest, knowing
Well,
that that exists.
yeah, the when I for the longest time, still today, but for the longest time I was coloring my own stuff out of necessity. And yeah, finally getting to like invest in Resolve, and like the power window definitely changed the way that, oh, that's a little bit exactly as you said. That's a little bit bright. So don't worry about that. And then now the Resolve has like a relight feature. Like
Yeah.
I shot this
It's
one
not
thing.
there yet. It's not there yet, but yes, I know
You
what you mean.
I shot this one thing that the contrast on this dude's face for an interview was like not. I should have punched it up more, but the background would have been. It was annoying. Um, and yeah, having him depth mapped off the back because it was too close to him, right? The background, and then using the relight feature, I was able to bring the background down, bring him up, and then adjust the contrast on his face. And I was like, fuck me, if I tried to give this to like, as you're saying, like a real colorist, this would be so many notes that I'd have to be like, hey, so can you fix all this for me? And so I've learned I have to be a lot more careful about that when I'm not the one
Yeah.
doing it,
Well, the thing is, everything is possible. Like, I remember years ago watching this. It's unfortunately not online anymore. I don't know why they took it down. There must be a reason. It was the color grading process in the Revenant. And
Really.
yes, it was a 30-minute like BTS of just color, like about the color. And
Probably a licensing issue. I'm gonna look for that now though.
what they did, it's literally every single thing, like face detail in Leonardo DiCaprio is power window. Like in the eye, the whole eye is power window, then just the pupil, just the inside of the pupil. So like
Jeez.
they have like assistant colorists doing this on every single shot, on every single frame of the movie. So then when they're basically relighting because that's all daylight, so they have all the information, etc. So they're adding contrast just on this area, and then just you're like basically lighting in post, and that's kind of what they were talking about in this PTS. Um, that is sort of one of the first times I saw something. I was like, whoa, okay. Like if you have time and a shit ton of money and a shit ton of artists to work behind it, you can really do like something incredible. And I think the next step of this, even though I'm like absolutely a hater of AI, is AIs that will do this, that will like separate the different elements of a frame with like just a click of a button. So like I'm like already power windowed, but then like you can select just my hair and just like my face and
Well, there's it's not even AI that exists in Resolve. There's Magic Mask. You
yeah,
literally just click it and draw a little line and then go. And I'm sure they're going to relabel it as AI, but that's not AI.
yeah.
But yeah, but stuff like that, I'm not mad at. If it's like, oh, this computer program will automatically mask all the features. Like that's great. Rotoscoping takes forever, but it's
No,
when
no,
they start creating things out of nothing, then it's like,
no. The creation side of it, it's absolutely insane to me because it's so blatantly obvious
yeah,
that they train that using people's work. That is not out of air. Like they literally went on Vimeo and took the entire library of Vimeo and input it on this thing, and then did the same with films,
yeah,
film databases, like without asking anybody, because there is nobody to check. That's the thing. It's like
yeah. How do you
there
prove
wasn't
it?
a AI police existing because nobody even know that this was happening. Um,
Well, and it also to your point about the Revenant thing, like I remember that coming out and everyone going, "Oh my God, uh,
Natural light.
all natural light! Like, look how
Yeah.
amazing this is!" And it's kind of the same problem with like the VFX argument. People go like, "See, you don't need VFX; you just need an expert DP." And it's like, I'm with you there. I agree. However, it is disingenuous for a lot of these like studios or whoever to promote these things as whatever all natural lights. Like, yeah, it's all natural light, and then so that's probably the
Mhm.
other reason why they took that video. If it's not a licensing thing, that was probably like, hey, we don't want people to know that we did all that, you know?
Well, think about the 28 years later that it's coming out this year, right?
I mean,
I know that they're gonna be like the whole campaign of it is gonna be shot on an iPhone because
yep.
it's shot on an iPhone, right? But you saw the BTS photo of that.
Yeah.
It's an iPhone with a Panavision zoom with like uh, light ranger on him. Like O'Connor, it's insane. Like it's the most ridiculous build ever. I don't know why, like at that point, like I understand shooting an iPhone if you wanna like have just an iPhone and like literally throwing it out of a window, you cannot do that with probably any camera in the world. But to make a build like that, then it sounds like a little bit like of a marketing move and be like, oh, shot on an iPhone, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
I saw a lot of people. I'm kind of uh, in the middle
looks
on that.
beautiful, huh?
It looks great.
Yeah.
And I think I'd be interested to talk to, what was that, Anthony Mantle
I don't know.
about
I
that?
think so. Yeah.
Um, I would be interested to talk to him about it because obviously on the one hand, you've got the like, oh, the first one was shot on the XL1S, and then the second one was actually filmed. And then the third one, they're going back to the well, like iPhone. Like, is it the small sensor that they're looking for? Because on the one hand, I agree that like, oh, that feels kind of bullshit to say it was shot on iPhone. Because people were saying the same thing about when the iPhone commercial came out, when they were like, oh, this entire press conference was shot on iPhone. And everyone was like, yeah, but there's like $1 million worth of lighting around it. It's like, yeah, but would you, or are you expecting, I guess the thing that I'm on the fence about is like it was shot on an iPhone. Are you arguing that, not you, but like are people arguing that if it is shot on an iPhone, therefore it must, everything else must be cheap?
No,
You know, and
no.
iPhones aren't cheap. iPhones are like
They're
$1,500, 60,
expensive.
you know, it's the
No, I
same
think
price as a mirrorless.
my point is like, what is really the reason? Like, is there a technical reason? I'm very curious. Is it like, because this is my point. Is
Mm,
it like a marketing reason? Like
probably.
Apple, biggest company in the world, like that's what
They
I'm
probably
talking
gave
about.
them some cash.
That's what I'm saying. If that's the reason, great. I mean, this exists. Sony does that with films all the time to like shoot on Sony Vegas. Fine, I'm down with that. There is no problem there. I know that the reason they shot the first one on those cameras is because they could close London for 5 minutes at a time, so they had 15 cameras rolling, and you cannot do it on 35. So like, yeah, you're gonna go with the cheapest thing that exists. That's great. You're using the limitation, that you have as a like power. I don't know if this is what's happening here. Well, anyways.
Well, and I think the thing that becomes frustrating with uh beginner DPs or younger folks or whatever, when they see something that says like, oh, shot on iPhone, is that the implication is that you can do this too. I think the online cinematography sort of community, I guess, is all about being inspired and giving this idea of like, you can do this too. Because I think prior to like 2007, it was understood that we could not do this too because you had to shoot film, right?
Yeah.
And if you didn't, if you shot VHS or whatever, then it looked like shit. And now I think people get mad at the implied promise that that's why the creator, I feel like, was such a it not indie hit. What am I trying to say? Like cultural hit within the space, just because everyone was like, I have an FX3, and
Yeah.
but then they changed up the tune because that lens they put on that thing was like incredibly expensive, whatever, like Lomo or whatever it was. And obviously they had all the locations and the craziest
No,
VFX
but
budget on the
I
planet.
think that makes sense in the way of like I wanna be quick because moving a Panavision Millennium like Excel, it's like not like
It needs a
it's
truck.
nuts. It's crazy. Like when I shoot like that, I have a 35 millimeter. I have an Atom Penelope. I think the best
Nice.
35 ever made.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Because it feels like a 16 millimeter camera, and like you wanna change mags, bam, you slap a mag. There is no threading. There is none of that. It comes with some limitations. You cannot do slow mo and blah blah blah. Anyways, when then I go shoot with like this bigger 35, I'm like looking three people and me like carrying it around, and I'm like, damn, in 2021, it's silly a little bit, you know?
Mhm.
it's a little silly, like this operation. Then it's beautiful, it's great to shoot 35, but like I get why if I was a director or like or a producer or someone is trying to save time and like get as much time for their performances or like as much time in their schedule. I get why looking at that looks silly
Yeah.
and makes you like stressed, you know? And I think in the creator, it's brilliant because they're like, oh, we're doing like big budget sci-fi film, but I want to feel it like an indie, you know, and I want to be able to move around and change my mind and be like, no, actually, we go to the other side, and you're moving 25 tracks and like a giant camera in the middle of like the grass, you know, like I love that. I think it's very smart that they did that.
Yeah. Well, and I always try to ask people who have worked on like big ass films like that, like what are some of the things that the indie world has brought to, the larger space and vice versa. There's a lot. You'll see someone who shot some A-list Hollywood film and then they come back and they do a short or maybe an indie film or whatever. And I'm always interested in like what, when going backwards, for instance, what do you not compromise on? Because smaller camera, I don't think anyone really cares. Maybe even using the autofocus, no one. But it's like I can't remember who it was, but they were like, "Yeah, I will never not have a lighting team anymore." Like, having to light everything yourself or only have like one. It's like, oh, fuck that. Once you've tasted greatness with an entire team, it's hard to go back.
Well, I don't know because I didn't really think about this, and I don't think I've done things big enough to like be like, well, going back to the,
Yeah.
I'm still in the small world. Um, but frankly, I think the short film, Eileen, the short film that I shot that is nominated for the Oscar, is a good example of like no budget. Like I shot it with an Alexa Classic of a friend of mine
You
with his.
handheld the classic?
Yes, I ran around with that thing for days.
And then you had to go to a
No,
chiropractor.
but I feel like, I mean, this is not just me. Like I think heavier it's easier for handheld in terms of like stability and
Oh,
how you
sure. Yeah,
feel
yeah.
it. Like, um,
It's just so
and-
long.
oh, it is, but it sits very well. It's very well designed, like in the weight distribution. But anyways, I'm doing the checkout in my apartment, and like all the accessories are coming from different friends, and I'm doing myself, and I don't know who's the AC. The lighting team, I was able to bring people that work on commercials, but the AC, nobody was available. Um, so the director's like, I will find somebody. So, anyways, I'm doing the checkout, and I realize the lens is on my friend. The 35 is unusable, has some fungus, something going on with it, where you put it on and it's like if you shoot it maybe like 4, 5, 6 pound works. But the idea on this one was to like sort of be almost wide open
Yeah, and
and
everything's
like
really
be
extreme
tight,
close up.
So I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like, that's fine. Anyways, I wanted to shoot 50 and 85, but like, it would have been nice to have the option at 35. And we're not gonna use it, you know. And it's a great example, I think, of like the gear like fixation abandon that, and like it's like, oh, whatever, we shot with whatever we had, and like this still works very well. And um, what really I think makes the difference is like what I learned on other projects, that I had the things and I had the toys, then you can reapply to like something where you don't really have everything you need, but you know that like one light in that position back there will work for this entire scene. So if you're able to have that one thing at least, um, and I think also like I didn't want to have a lot of objects and things around. I wanted to be free to move, almost everything is lit from the ceiling,
Yeah.
Or from outside, because I didn't really want to like turn and then like, oh, bunch of stands,
Right.
and tell the actors, now you're gonna go there. You walk there, hit a mark. It wasn't really that project. And I think you feel it when you watch it. you feel like you're in it. You
Yeah.
feel like it's real.
I didn't. I just watched it earlier this morning, and I wasn't getting the vibe that it was lit at all. Not that it looked unlit, but just like it looked very, like you're saying, incredibly natural.
That's
And
good.
in the space, you know.
That's good. It's a thing like years ago, I started thinking of like if I have to be like, oh, what is your style? What is like if I really have to think about that, my ideal scenario is what you just said, like
Mm.
invisible cinematography or invisible lighting. I think when you're able to touch that word, that is not distracting because this handheld, like it can be very distracting, very present camera, and plus then you have like a very like stylized lighting, then you're really like, well, what is this? This is not an immigration office where like,
Right. Try to make it
uh,
look too much like CSI. It'll take everyone out of
yes,
it.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, that's generally kind of what happens in these locations, where like it looks a little too polished because very good cinematographers and they want their shot to look good, and they want like they kind of rely based on the like setup and it's always like far side and like all these things that I'm like, no, well, it's not realistic in this place. I remember we are shooting the hallway and that one of the two directors, Sam, he's a great cinematographer as well. He directs, but he shoots too.
Mm.
And he's like, we're looking down this hallway and we are doing a wide but with a long lens. So we're all the way back on 100 and the characters are all the way down there. And I'm like a little high. So you see the fluorescence in frame. And it's like, oh, why don't we turn off half the hallway, the first half? This is the classic thing, that you will do in a location like that. So it's moodier it has contrast and like you see the person coming from a brighter area to a darker. And I was like, no, I want to do that because how does that make any sense in like a USCIS building? Half of the always black, like it's dark. No, like it takes me out. I don't want to do. I know it looks better. We saw it. We turned it off, and it looked better. But that's not the point here. And I don't know. I think like sometimes like you do sacrifice certain things, but it kind of makes sense. It's
Well, I was going to say even like narratively, right? They're the two characters are being scrutinized, under a microscope. More light, having everything sort of like every light on gives itself to the idea that they're being watched. If there's
yeah,
pockets of dark, they can hide, quote unquote, like emotionally.
yeah, yeah. No, totally.
Yeah. Did you have to clear, like, I imagine you didn't based on the subject, but do you have to clear like Border Patrol logos and stuff
I
or
have
ICE
no
logos?
idea.
Yeah,
I don't.
because I was watching this, I was
I
like, damn, this is aggressive. If you had to go like, hey, can we make a movie about you? It's not going to be flattering.
I don't know. I tell you this, like we never made this film with a political intention, even though if it can feel like that. But the way I look at it is this: as a foreigner and as an immigrant in this country, to me, it's not about who is in power now or before or who will be. These people, they recycle. They will die. They're mortal. Like it doesn't matter. These ideas, those are dangerous. Like the idea of like, oh, immigrant, criminal, like invasor, like this is the oldest concept of humanity. Like someone coming from outside is dangerous. How do we stop them? And like I think is a little bit this what we're trying to tell in these stories. Like these are people, these are people like families, fathers, mothers, this we're not talking about numbers here. We're not talking about like um some random like concept. It's and how do we make these processes more human?
Mm.
Because I think the people that work for ICE and the people that work for the Department of Immigration, they're just people as well, but the job itself brings you to like sort of have to like block empathy.
Hmm.
I don't think like to be honest, like I'm convinced about this. I don't think every person worked for the ICE is like a super convinced conservative that it hates immigrants. It's too crazy like to think that, these are public employees, that they're maybe that's the only option they had for job where they were. And um the classic I'm following orders type of thing where like, yeah, because this system that you worked for is a system that makes you dehumanize who you have in front of you, as if instead of like, oh, sorry, I cannot help you, I can do anything for you, like your life is ruined, you had like, wait, okay, you missed this form, let me figure out if we can together. This is what in an ideal country, in an ideal space, will be the reaction, and that will happen only through a reform of the immigration system that is less a witch hunt and more of like, how can I help you
Right.
like legalize your situation, um
Well, and to your point about the people working there, like even if they show up with good intentions, have you ever heard of killology? So basically, there's this guy, I guess, who goes around the country training police forces with this what he calls killology, which is essentially that all I think the LAPD fucking does this, but it's like the idea is essentially everyone you run into could potentially be someone with like a gun who could kill you. So they drill it into these people. I'm sure some people are like, oh, you get, great benefits, good pay. Like I'm going to go, be a cop. Maybe I want to help people. A
yeah.
lot of people I think get into policing because they want to help. And then they get there and they're like, you're going to die if you're not vigilant. So then you spend how many years in that constant kind of fight or flight mode? Like you're, even if it's not how you started, it's how you ended up because of the system that they put around you.
Well, it's that, and it's also, I think, to be honest, a very, 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 very stressful job. Like,
Oh, sure.
is maybe the most, it's probably more than military. At the level of PTSD that you go through, the level of like things that you see every day, just car accidents, you're the first time. Like, you're a doctor, but you're the first person to be there and seeing like insane injuries. Like, just that affects you as a person,
Mm.
And it's like, I don't know, it's sort of a thankless job too, like in the last years, because of like the way we look at it as like enemies, and it all goes down to the way it's structured. Because I don't know if we want to get into this conversation, but it's like Foucault, like control and punish, like
Mm.
is the way like the architecture of buildings is made is not randomic, is done in a way to create a certain feeling about that building. And the same with the actual like infrastructure of the jobs.
Mm.
At the end of the day, police is the monopoly of violence. If you
Right.
really think about it, it's the only like and the same with eyes and all these like sub departments. They're all the only people allowed in society to execute violence, if you think about it. And
Yeah, there's this comedian who has this funny little rant on his name is Brendan Lee Mulligan, I can't remember the full. It's like 3 sentences, but he's basically like laws are just promises of violence enacted by the dominant socioeconomic racial group in any given nation.
yeah,
It's like that. Yeah, that does
well,
kind of suck.
it becomes dangerous when you have people behind this monopoly of violence maneuvering it with an agenda.
Mm.
And then is when it becomes like very dangerous, and this is not the US. Why police is a conversation everywhere in the world is this, is because nobody kind of found out a in between solution where like you do need it. That is not in discussion,
Mm,
but how do you like manage it in a way that doesn't create like abnormalities in society where like it becomes dangerous, and like um, I grew up in Brazil. Brazil has an history of dictatorship as a lot of like Latin American countries, and it sort of like it started through like normalization of um, these procedures.
mm.
There's a beautiful film that is nominated for the Oscars from Brazil. It's I'm Still Here.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and they show it there. They show it on this film. It starts with like having a lot of like um, police like blockades, or how you call it, like where they stop every single car, and
Checkpoint.
checkpoints. Yeah, and it starts with that, and like people get used to that concept, and then people start getting used to the concept that people disappear, and then you normalize these absolutely insane things, and life goes on, and people keep going even though these things happen.
Yeah.
And that's what we were trying to do in this film. I think like a lot of people know that the eyes exist, know that these practices are used, but I don't know if they are aware of exactly what's happening.
Yeah. I was about to say something that it's a short film. It's only like 15 minutes, but I was about to say something that kind of gives away I suppose the punchline, if you want to call it that. So I'm not going to, because you can see, is the version that I saw online, like, is that free and open? Anyone can see that?
Yeah, it's a
Oh, okay.
Viva staff pick. It's open in the US.
Gotcha.
In other countries, no. In
Because
the US, it's open.
sometimes especially with festivals, they get real iffy if you put something on Vimeo or whatever.
Yeah. No,
But
it's out. It's fully out.
I think it's
That's why it was even surprising for us, to be honest, this whole Oscar thing, because we did it in 2021. It did its festival run for 2 years, a year and a half, and then it was on Vimeo, and then we got long listed, and we're like, oh, interesting. Uh, well, cool. And then when we got shortlisted, we're like, okay, wait,
hold on, what?
let's try to like get a nomination, Then yeah, when it happened, we're like, oh, like wow, surreal.
Yeah. I actually now I have two questions. Now I have three. Notes. Did that. When you were growing up in Brazil, were they American films that made you want to become a cinematographer, or were they Brazilian films, or somewhere around there?
Definitely American films.
Seems to be the
So
case.
yeah, so basically I from Brazil I moved to Rome, and I did back and forth until I was 18. Because my father was in Brazil, my mom was in Italy. And in Italy, the father of one of my best friends is the screenwriter of Dario Argento.
Mm.
So he wrote all the biggest Dario Argento films. And he wrote also Once Upon a Time in America of Sergio Leone. What does this mean? It means that in the early 2000s, I had access to an insane library of films because this guy is like a film lover, and he was showing kids, me and his son and his brother, movies that maybe we should be watching at 11 years old,
Yeah.
and but it was amazing. He gave me such like a culture very early on. I remember seeing the Invasion of the Body Snatchers when I was like 9, and like I was like, whoa, you can do this, you know what I mean? Like I was coming from cartoons of Disney, and then I watched that and I was like, wow, like this can be cinema, and I remember like watching it
Yeah.
and being so scared, like for years being scared. I was like, damn, like the film can affect you like this, and Joe's the same. Like it was like another. I couldn't swim. I'm in the sea without thinking for years that there was a shark. Still today, to be honest. And
Yeah.
so I think I had that like new Hollywood, like like Spielberg, George Lucas, Brian De Palma, like Scorsese, etc. Um, phase, and then because of him, also had like a horror, like Ruggero Deodato and all the like B movies, like Italian horrors from the 80s that I watch a lot. And then I think I there was a moment where I fully like started trying to go like into darker, weirder films, and and I think like that happened with. I remember the first one that I was like, oh whoa, it's like another like epiphany moment. My brother came to my room and was like, gave me like a pirate copy of Pulp Fiction,
Nice.
and I'm like, put it on, and I don't know what it is. He's like, you gotta watch this. It's crazy, and I'm like 14 or 15, and I put it on, and like I remember another moment of watching it and being like, whoa, I want to make this type of films. This is incredible. Um, so definitely, I think I learned Brazilian and Italian cinema later on. I like Fellini, Elio Petri, that is one of my favorite directors, Bertolucci, etc. It's people that I discovered when I was like a little bit more adult. And I obviously grew up watching the classics, but I think I didn't fully appreciate them until I was a little bit more of an adult, and I had like a different um, I don't know,
Yeah, I mean it's the same for like I only got into film because I liked sci-fi, The Matrix and Men in Black and um,
yeah,
Chronicles of Riddick and all that. And then when I finally started getting into like film as a career, I was like, oh, maybe I should go watch those quote unquote boring movies. And then you end up watching and be like, oh, these aren't boring. I was just a child and I
yeah.
didn't have a frame of reference for this. I didn't have concepts of like these themes that can hit hard. I just liked explosions and aliens.
I mean, even though Chronicles of Riddick is a dope film,
It's very good. People disagree. I think it's awesome.
I think it's a masterpiece. It's
My
it's
a buddy of mine works at Prop Store, the prop company that like auctions off, and they've got like 3 or 4 remaining Necromonger costumes, and they're only like
wow.
1,500.
I
And
want the little nail that he uses to kill like the aliens. You know what I'm talking about?
the nail.
He has like two knives or two nails that are done from dead aliens.
Oh, the claws.
The claws, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I actually I'll show you later. I made his swing blades. I
Yes.
emailed the director, and this would have been like right after the movie came out. I emailed the director and I was like, "Hey, what are those?" And he told me. He emailed me back in like 10 minutes, and it was just like, "Oh yeah, those are
Wow.
X-Acto knives, and then this is called a Pakistani swing blade. We just glued them together." And I was
I
like,
know this is an amazing thing I have to like compliment of American people in the credit world.
mm,
You can email, if you have the email, you can
but
email anybody. They will reply in a second. This is not common around the world. Let me tell you this. I can, I just been through it because I try to like have big contact with like people in Italy that to maybe support the short
mm,
for like the academy. And mm, the opposite experience. Nobody's replying. So like, and in the US, it's incredible. This, I think it's part of why I had a lot of chances
mm.
too. Like moving here, I think like people are so open to like give you a shot. Um, and I feel like it is. I mean, it's a amazing quality.
Well, I think if I had to guess, obviously I haven't lived abroad, but like if I just think about my own inbox, it's 90% spam, or not spam necessarily, but like, press releases or, you owe us money again this month or whatever. And then when you finally get an email from a person, you're like, ooh, I
I
will
want to
give you
talk to
4 hours of my time. Yeah, yeah. It's like a real person. How about that? So that could
well,
be annoying.
but I think also, it's a thing that I realize a lot of people are scared of asking for help or just
Mm.
scared of asking anything. Like I think you had some sort like a naivety in a way, in a beautiful way, of just emailing this director and be like, what is that? You
A
know?
prop question, by the way. Not even didn't
Yes.
even look up the prop person, just went straight to the director.
And it's amazing, you know, and I think like people feel that and like, wow, there is passion here and they love that. And I feel like a lot of times I sort of have to like almost push people that I know to help them. I'm like, oh, you wait, you need this? Yeah, I can. Why don't you ask me? You know what I mean? I feel like people are like, we have to relearn the fact that this is a film community, you know, like, and everyone helps each other and everyone grows together. Like, it's such an important aspect. Like, more and more, I think this is actually what will save cinema, is not some people that are gonna re-put money into film and then resparkle the whole thing, and we're like all like waiting, like looking up, like, please, like, drop some money down here. That's not gonna happen. It's gonna start from the bottom, and like people making films with like way less budget that we were used to, but everyone is an investor in the film. And then, yes, of course, it's sustainable because it costed 4 million to make. It made 25, but everyone that was part of it made a lot of money that then we reuse for the next one, you know, and you want to repeat the experience and et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it's not going to work, but it's going to be way more sustainable than like throwing $25 million at something and then like, wait, we have to make at least 100 to make it back. Like
Right.
it's wild, you know, and it's what already did it with in the 70s when the whole studio system was going down. Like that's what saved it. You know,
Well, and you've
it's
seen it all the time, like with Chaplin and Bennett United Artists and Zoetrope and all these other like indie. It's certainly a different situation, like 100%, but the sort of basic concept is still there
yeah,
of getting, you do need funding obviously, but doing stuff outside the studio system, and especially with your Neons and your A24s of the world, like I feel like there's more distributors getting together and they're willing to like find those things and put them out, and it does seem like the audiences are very receptive to it.
100%. I think people are bored, and people are like people. It's us. So like us, we want to watch the movies and that we grow up with, you know, and this like phase of the attention span reducing and blah blah blah. it's it's bound to end, you
Yeah.
know, and I think it will be cool again to search for the obscure fucking shit. You know, like, did you heard of this punk band that nobody knows? Like, and like they're playing in like these little bars for 150. Let's go. That's gonna be cool again, you know? And that's what I grew up with. Like, it was almost like, oh, like a challenge between friends of trying to like, you know, like inspire each other and teach each other about new things, and not like we all listen and watch the same stuff. It's like, okay, great, we talk about it for 2 minutes and it's done. But wait, have you listened to this album because I bought it like in Japan at the weird just like, you know, this it's what it's gonna be again. What sparkles art in general, you know, I think the avenues that we were given in the last years were cool. Like, I don't really criticize the streaming per se. It was a great new thing, but it's not the only way.
Yeah.
You know, like I think like even I think like cinemas per se also like they might not be like anymore the way of like showing film, but um maybe it's retaking spaces that are not supposed to be for screening a film, and you make it that, you know? Right.
What's funny is every time I go to LAX, I drive by what was clearly a theater. I think it says Loyola on the front or something. And it's changed a few times, but I think it's currently for sale. But its last iteration was like a medical center. And I always wonder, like, what does the inside of this theater look like that they've turned it into a medical center? With like this in the wherever the screen was, is there like a sloped floor that they had to account for where all the seats were and shit? Like what are It's
These old beds that are sliding down.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
It's
nurses, distracted nurses that are like running behind beds.
oh my god. Yeah, yeah, they're having to like climb up the side. Sir, oh fuck, sir, you can't. But yeah, just do it in the opposite way. Find a hospital that's busted and turn it into a screening room or something.
No, yeah. I mean, LA, if you think about it, is the perfect example of it because there is so many abandoned places everywhere, like empty spots that can become that. And I think contemporary art has already been doing that
Hmm.
for a while. Even the fashion industry, like it's been doing that. Like taking, like, forget about doing a runway in like this spot that has to be there that costs like $150,000 a day to rent. No, we're gonna do it at the like trash distribution center. Uh, Partially because you want to be cool, but partially it's because that place costs 3K,
Right.
and so all the money can go into like making a better show. And sort of the same can happen in film, where like, okay, to distribute this film into like 12,000 theaters in America, it's gonna cost this amount of marketing. No marketing, like zero. Let's make zero marketing into it, and maybe that money you put it in the creative, and maybe the word of mouth will make it go. Like I don't know. I don't have the solution, but I feel like obviously something different. It's
Well,
gonna happen.
well, we do. I don't think like Alamo Draft House is the answer, but it, people our age do seem to be like experience driven. Actually,
Yeah.
one thing that's nice about TikTok is you'll see some band you've never heard of, and right at the bottom it says "add from Spotify," and you just click it, and it adds it into your playlist. And then
Mhm.
Spotify will like email you when they're touring in your area. Like that's cool, but
Yeah.
that's a kind of a side thought. I just remembered that when I was going to say it earlier. But the experiential thing, uh, I think you're totally right. Like having non-traditional screening venues makes people want to, it's a hook. Well, I used to work at Red Bull, and one thing that they still do, that is kind of part of their DNA now, is putting action sports in places they don't belong.
Mhm.
So you've got like heavy metal was a snowboard competition recently that was like in a business park. There's staircases in a business park, and so they like hit that, or like Red Bull Rampage, which is like a dirt bike, or not dirt bike, mountain bike competition, but it's like in the craziest mountain you could think of. Like it's not traditional, and people love
Mhm.
that stuff. I think there's a version of that, yeah, where it's like, our film for the next week is screening at the top of the U.S. Bank building in downtown. Like whatever. It's like,
No,
ooh, that's interesting.
that's yeah.
And
It's exactly.
you can theme the, like, let's say the movie's about, fuck. All right. So let's say Die Hard hadn't come out. Die Hard was filmed in Century
Yeah,
City.
yeah. There is the building of the studio I produced here, actually.
Oh,
It was
word.
the office building of their studio.
Yeah, my gym's right next to there. I probably shouldn't say that. I probably should. I'm gonna cut that out. Um, uh, but like if Die Hard hadn't come out and they like screened it for a week in that building, that would be sick.
Well, they could do a re like master version and do that.
Yeah.
I think that's like we are where our mind is going. It's kind of the road show that Tarantino did years ago,
Yeah,
like
I went to
where
that.
and me too. And I think he kind of understood or understands that. And I mean, obviously, he bought cinemas and etc. And like he's in a position of power to do that. And I'm glad he's doing that. And people criticize like, oh, it sucks that he bought. I mean, he's saving these places. Like there isn't a line to buy cinemas. Like he's probably losing money in making them. To be honest, like
He
I
installed
don't
all those
know.
70 projectors that are in most theaters, and they're
I,
still using them.
I don't know the numbers, but I can tell you that it's not like the most successful business in the world, clearly.
Hmm.
But I go all the time because it creates like, I mean, it's just the way it's done. It gives you something more and something that reminds me of the experience when I was going to cinemas before. And it's the same with the Brutalist, the intermission.
I loved
Me,
it.
me too.
Yeah.
And I think the intermission is something I remember always. There was always intermission in films where there would be a guy coming by with snacks and popcorns, like with a little tray, and I don't know if this was like this in the US, but like at least in Italy and Brazil was like this. And you would buy the popcorn during the intermission, or get another Coke, or go outside and buy it. And you get time to think also what you just watched. You know, um,
I
and
uh, I actually interviewed Lowell Crawley a couple weeks ago, um, and I told him, I was like, that intermission came at the exact correct time. Like, yeah, narratively it did, but it was like 2 minutes before it popped up. I was like, oh, I'm kind of getting antsy. Like, I need to like stand up or use the rest. And then the intermission came on. I was like, what did they study? Like this, they must have picked like, all right, this is exactly when people don't want to sit anymore.
yeah,
It was so perfect.
it's yeah, I don't know. It's kind of what it was. You know what I mean? Why did we change it? Like sometimes I really think about like, hey, there is certain things as like, why was it changed? There was no reason to change it. Like it was great, really. Like
Well, and especially with movies now getting 3 hour cuts, it's like, give me a second. Let me,
yeah,
especially like, yeah, to refill stuff. And especially now that the first step of the experiential experience was just like, oh, I can go get another beer. Like I can, I can,
yeah,
I don't need Coke. I can enjoy my evening. Um,
yeah.
I got to let you go here in a second, but I
Mhm.
did want to ask because we kind of got excited and skipped over it because obviously you had that Poppy commercial in the Super Bowl. You got a Nike commercial on there. You got a great looking, what's her name, Catrianda.
Cadranada
Yeah,
and Childish Gambino.
yeah, all these things that look really just rad. And I was wondering what when you're doing these commercials for a Nike, for what was it, ITA Airlines, for
Mhm.
Poppy, whatever. What are some of the elements that a client is going to want to see from a cinematography perspective that make it look polished, make it look the way that
Mhm.
they're expecting? Because most clients don't know what they want.
Interesting. Um,
Like, is it a lighting thing? Is it because I'm noticing a lot right now, a lot of popular commercials, very wide angle. We seem to be shooting a lot of wide angle now.
mhm. I think, like a lot for me is how do I extract the information from the director? Because sometimes these jobs happen so quick, and like people have a million other people to talk to, and then you have like very little conversations. And I love to like be involved in like I want to be part of the art department chat, like I work everything. I want to know everything because that informs me of how it's gonna be, because then when you're on set, boom, it's presented in front of you and you have to figure it out. Um, and I don't like I like to improvise when I'm prepared. I don't like to just like wing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's a thing I learned, like also like to just tell people, give me a second, let me think about it. Like and sometimes like people sort of like feel like insecurity or not being sure what you're doing is like a negative characteristic, but it's actually a great thing because it's wild to have all the answers. There is no way. Like, you are just working scouts. You just walk into a location. It's like, so where are you putting this? I don't know. I don't know. It's the first time I'm seeing this room. Give me a second. Let me talk with the director. Let me figure out what we're doing. Then I will tell you. But years ago, I will be like, oh, here, okay, because I was scared, so I had to give you an answer. And so like I think now my process, it's really like how do I gather as much information as I can so then I can form an opinion, so that I can bring my like um ideas to the table. And okay, I think like this client, going back to what you asked, or like this agency person is asking this, I think what they really mean, and I try to interpret that,
Mm.
and a lot of times it's also about showing things that they don't really know, like that they might like. People get super scared, especially in the commercial world, to go outside of the storyboard of what was exactly approved, and then like on a lot of commercials they do like half of the final shots are things that were never in it, that we did, maybe even like turning off the VTR and not showing image to the client, like in between shots. Um, and it really depends. Every time it's different. Sometimes you're working with agencies that are like super open to that approach and they just like, yeah, go do your thing and like, whoa, love it. And then other times people are like, no, like it has to be exactly what you drew in the like storyboard. That's the
That's
those are
the
not.
approved copy or whatever.
Yeah, because there is legal sides behind it, like a lot of things that I like we don't really know, like it's bureaucratic somehow because it has to go through many layers of people. Um, but yeah, I think every job is different, but the thing that is in common is like how do you get all the information you need to do it? Because it moves fast, and a lot of times people think that you know what's happening, but it wasn't communicated well or it didn't arrive to you. So, like, I want to avoid that, and I want to be sure, like, I know everything.
Yeah, that reminds me of a lesson I had to learn in a very hard way. It's like my first kind of bigger gig on a feature film. I was second unit, and I just assumed they gave me all the information I needed. And I had questions, but I was like, why would I'm not, I'm the new guy here. I should just accept what the information they've given me is everything. And then I get on set and they're like, you know, not that they asked me this because it went fine, but there was just a bunch of things where they essentially it was like, well, why didn't you get this light, or why didn't you, why don't I have? And it's like, you told me what the gear list was, and they're like, that's what we had. I don't like, you're the DP. Fucking tell us what you need. And I was like, shit. I wasn't I wasn't proactive enough. I wasn't and even if they said no, it would have been better if I asked. It's I already have the job. It's not like they're going to fire me for asking questions.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a thing that happened a few times too. It's like you're on set and then the director's like, okay, let's do that zoom shot. I'm like, I have a zoom. I'm like, wait, we never spoke about it. And
Right.
it's maybe something they wrote, you know, on a piece of the treatment, and you spoke about it a million times and it was never mentioned again. And then they show it to you and you're like you're an idiot, because again, there was no time to talk and etc. This is literally something that happened to me. And like,
Yeah.
so like then you learn your lessons and you like learn what questions to ask, and like it's never gonna happen again, basically because of that.
Yeah. Don't be paranoid, but be proactive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's actually people appreciate questions. I appreciate
100%.
good, like you knowing or asking or figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll let you go because I assume it's dinner time over there. But
It is.
yeah, thanks so
Well,
much
so
for
nice
coming on the show,
chatting
man.
with you.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course. Thank you.
And the short's great, and congrats on all the nominations and stuff. I look forward to
Thank you.
Oscar season or day, whenever it is.
Yeah. All right. Thank you,
All right.
man.
Take care, brother.
Bye. Peace.
Frame and Reference is an Albot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.